Today we are cracking the code on a system that impacts literally millions of people, but is, let's be honest, understood by very few. Pakistan's land records. So whether you're thinking about buying property or you're just curious, we're going to demystify this whole complicated world. Let's dive right in.
So, imagine this. You've found the perfect plot of land. It's exactly what you're looking for. But how can you be 100% sure that the person selling it to you is the actual true owner? It's a really basic question, right? But in Pakistan, the answer is buried deep in history. And here's the real kicker. The entire system we're about to unpack, it wasn't even built to give people a clear, guaranteed title to their land. Not at all. It was put together by colonial administrators for one main reason: to collect taxes as efficiently as possible. And you know what? That single historical fact changes everything about how this works today. To really get a handle on the system as it is now, we have to look back at how it all started. This is a story that's been written down on paper for generations, and it's built on a very specific legal idea. Now, while you've got modern laws like the Land Revenue Act of 1967 that sort of provide the legal wrapper, the actual nuts and bolts of the system, they're way older. It's this whole hierarchy of revenue officials, from the local village guy, the Patwari, all the way up to the Tehsildar, who've been keeping these exact same kinds of records for decades and decades.
Okay, if you take away only one single thing from this whole explainer, make it this. The records run on a principle called presumptive ownership. What that means is the government presumes the person listed in the record is the owner, but, and this is a huge but, it's not final proof. It can always be challenged in court. Think of it as a record of rights, not an ironclad guarantee.
All right, now that we've got that huge, critical concept down, let's figure out how the system actually points to a specific piece of land. The best way to think about it is like a geographical drill down, going from a really big area to one precise little plot. Everything starts with something called the Mauza. This is your basic building block. It's usually a village or what they call a revenue estate. Honestly, the easiest way to get it is to think of it like the land's zip code. It tells you the general neighborhood you're dealing with. So, once you know the Mauza, you've got to find the Kastra number. This is a unique ID for one specific field or plot of land inside that Mauza. So if the Mauza is the zip code, the Kastra number is the exact street address. It pinpoints the precise parcel of land we're talking about. So, really, it's a pretty straightforward two-step process to find any piece of land in these records. First, you find the right Mauza, and then you just zero in on that specific Kastra number inside it. Simple as that. Okay, so we know where the land is. The next logical question is, who is connected to it? And this is where the system makes a really important distinction, a split between the person who owns the land and the person who's actually working on it. This slide just breaks down that key difference perfectly. You've got the Kedawatt number, which is all about the owner or owners, who they are, what their share is. But then you have the Katuni number, and that tracks the cultivator, the tenant, the person with their hands in the dirt. This separation is so important because it recognizes that the person using the land isn't always the one who owns it, which happens all the time in farming areas. So we've got the where with the Mauza and Hasra, and we've got the who with the Kewat and Katuni. But where is all this information actually written down? Well, it all comes down to a few key documents that make up the official paper trail. The big one, the master document, is the Jamabandi. Think of it as the ultimate ledger, the main register for an entire Mauza. It gets updated every 4 years, and it pulls together all that information, Kasra, Kewat, Katuni, all into one place. It is, for all intents and purposes, the system's source of truth. Now, to go along with that big book of records, you need a picture, right? That's the Shadra Kishtawar. It's the official map of the Mauza. And get this, traditionally, it was drawn on a big piece of cloth. It shows the exact shape, the boundaries, and the Khasra number for every single plot. When people argue about where their land ends, this is the map they pull out to settle it. And when you're looking at these old maps and records, you're not always going to see feet or meters. The system still uses these traditional units of measurement. You'll see things measured in kurum, marla, and kanal. It's just the language of the land in these records. Okay, so this is all great theory. But how do you actually use this information, say, if you want to buy a piece of land? You go and request a fard. A fard is basically just a certified, official copy of the record for one specific property. It's the snapshot you get from the revenue office to prove ownership and check if there are any issues before a deal goes down.
Right, so these records aren't just sitting there gathering dust. Land gets sold, it gets inherited, it gets gifted, things are always changing. So how does a change that happens in the real world get updated on these official papers?
Well, the whole process is called a mutation, or in Urdu, intikal. This is the formal, official act of recording a change of ownership, and it's absolutely crucial. Without an official mutation, that sale or inheritance isn't fully recognized by the government. This is the step that makes it real in the eyes of the system.
The whole thing flows pretty logically. First, the transfer happens, a sale, a gift, whatever. Second, a mutation is filed and approved by a revenue officer to get that change on the books. And finally, that new information is used to update the master record, the Jambabandi, to make sure everything stays current.
So let's bring this all home. After navigating all these different terms and documents, what's the single most important thing you need to remember about this entire system?
And we are right back to our core principle, and this quote just says it perfectly. The land records give you a powerful presumption of who the owner is, but it is not a 100% guarantee. It's a record of rights that is considered true until and unless someone successfully challenges it in a court of law.
So what does that all mean for you, practically speaking? It means these records are an absolutely essential tool. They have to be your first stop when you're checking out a property. But you have to remember, they are the starting point for your investigation, not the final word. Diligence is everything.
And that leaves us with one big final question for the future. You know, today, this whole century-old paper system is going digital with things like the Punjab Land Records Authority, or PLRA. But can a framework that was fundamentally built just to collect taxes, can it really be tweaked and updated to provide the kind of clear, guaranteed property titles that a modern economy desperately needs? Well, that is the